Hello everybody. If I get the thumbs up that you can see and hear me, that would be amazing. So I'll just wait before I launch into everything until I hear that everything's all right. And I can see there are lots of people here already, which is absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for tuning in, and there's a few familiar names here, which is really lovely to see. So hopefully you can see me all now and hear me all now. And let's have a look who's watching already. So hi Chris. Who else have we got? Oh, we've got the woolly felters here. Hello, I don't know which one of the woolly felters we've got, but hello whoever it is. And there's just a doll has just fallen down, so I'm going to pick her up again in a minute. And Diane, oh, you're not on your walk today. That's good. Hi Emma, great. We can see and hear you. That's always good to know. And if you can see this contraption here in the picture, I've changed the setting again on the camera, and I'm sorry, you just have to put up with it because it's just the best view to get this really nice close-up, which I want to give to you. And I don't want to put it on the other side because I'm right-handed. It's all been thought through, so trust me, I'm getting quite an expert at this now. Oh, hi Jane, how are you? I know you're really dying to make one of those dolls, and I can't wait to do the live stream when we're making Hannes and Hannah. Who else? Oh, hi Alex. Nice. Oh, thank you. Alex says congratulations. Thank you. And we've got, oh, hi Judy. So we've got Judy from the Woolly Felters. If you don't know the Woolly Felters, you must look them up. They have just published a book, a needle felting book, and we are really in support of them, and they're in support of us, and their books are really fun, and they always do really fun projects as well. I love your now what are they called again, your oh, I can never remember it. You know, when you do like little videos, and yeah, there is a word for it, and it doesn't come to me now. Hi Sophie. Oh, and talking of Sophie, she's just handed me a card. It's so nice. There. Lovely. And not just the card, but also some, ooh, get them in the picture, some flowers. There. And guess what they're called? Rainbow tulips. And yes, I already looked at it. There is actually a color missing, but that's fine. They can still be rainbow tulips. Yes, I don't think you get blue tulips. Can't even say that. Oh, Ross, are you? Oh, Ross is looking too. So we've got both the woolly felters there. Lovely. Yeah, the sound is definitely on this time. So that, but maybe some of you haven't got the sound on. Hi, Chandra. It's nice to see you. Yes, and Sophie is here. It's not that Sophie didn't want to be here at any of the other live streams we've been doing, but we have been absolutely flat out because we've only got half of the people that we normally have, and bearing in mind there are 10 of us, so we're in fact today, yeah, there is no, we're now only 4 this afternoon because one of our ladies goes home at 1. And so we have a few people working from home, but it's just not the same because sometimes you need to lend a hand, and it comes down to Sophie and me lending the hand. Wave to you when you... Oh, that's funny. Jane waved to me, which of course I can't see, but I just said her name at the same time. So maybe there is a bit of... maybe we can read each other's mind. Hi, Donna. Oh, Sophie, you are a good friend. You really are. And I want to say that the first thing that I should be doing, starting with this book, I should be reading out the acknowledgments in the back, because to be honest, a book like this, or any book, never happens unless you have got lots of support around you. And so I will just read this very quickly, starting at the end of the book. But my biggest thanks, as always, has to be to my family. herewith as a means of an apology for my absent-mindedness, weekends and holidays spent making and writing and compromising on precious family time and wholesome home-cooked meals. I will not even mention my bad moods. Yes, I do get very bad moods. I get very grumpy. Thank you to my children for letting me use their names for the dolls, and thank you to my husband, Simon, who has stood alongside me so I could fulfill this part of myself. A big thank you must go to my business partner and beautiful human, Sophie Buckley. So there you go, Sophie. You can go read without even being seen. Who has supported and encouraged me to write this book. I know it came at a cost. Next, I would like to thank Katie Bevan. I actually don't know whether it's Bevan or Bevan, but she's my editor. I only know her as Katie, and she's lovely. Who has kept me on track, provided me with a much needed book plan and big picture, and who has been hugely sensitive to the nature of the book. And I just want to say a massive thank you to you, Katie, because it's very personal writing a book, and I'm really, really delighted that you understood the parts that were personal to me and tried to fulfill them too. Thank you to Lucy Guano, and she's now she illustrated the Making Needle Felted Animals book, and it's just beyond words. She has such a knack for it, and designs the book, and it anyway. For your usual excellent quality of drawings and design, you bring the book to life for me. Thanks also to Ollie Parrott. So a lot of the photos in the book are from him, for his lovely photos of dolls, people's hands and accessories. The images are the icing on the cake. Thank you to Sarah. Now Sarah has kindly lent us her 2 children, beautiful children, Indira and Elijah, and for being such agreeable models. I also want to express my deep gratitude to Martin Large, who owns Hawthorne Press, the publishers, without whom this book nor my previous 2 wouldn't exist. You finally got your doll book. So the doll book was the one that he asked for in the first instance, but it came a little bit as a roundabout way via 2 needle felting books. So here is the doll book finally. So what I want to do today is I want to introduce you to the book, to the projects, and also to the materials, give you an idea of what's involved making these dolls. But I'm also really keen to get lots of questions if you've got them for me to answer them. And there is also a competition happening throughout the whole of the live stream, and you're gonna have to watch right to the end, because at the end I will ask you the question that you have to then really quickly put on the comments, and the first one to get the answer right will win a book, a signed book. And they're all signed, and I thought that's appropriate for this time as well. Let's sow some love, and it would be nice if any of you could win the book. I also want to express my deep gratitude to Stuart Hillard. If you don't know Stuart Hillard, he does amazing designs of quilt patchwork. He also designs handbags and other sewn items, and he's a knitter and a crocheter as well. And I feel like we're sort of a kindred spirit, and it's really nice that he has endorsed the book by saying another gem of a book from the wonderfully talented Steffi. My turn to go red now. So this is always good when you wear a red jumper. You don't notice when your cheeks are blushing. So there you go. I hope Stuart is watching. I did invite him, but he's a busy man, so he might not be able to do that. Hi Colette, how are you doing? I've loved your wisteria wall, I must say. I do follow what you're up to on Facebook very closely, obviously, because we're good friends. And Lauren is listening too. Hi Lauren. Colette says she recognizes my voice. It's probably this terrible accent that I've got. Hi Jennifer, nice to see you too. Claire Hudson, hi. Hello Time, I've joined your live show. Nice to see you here. Elizabeth, hello everyone. I'm looking forward to learning more hints and tips. Excellent. That's exactly what we're here for. And Anita congratulating me on the book. Thank you very much. And Sarah Brown is here as well. Sarah Brown runs the Needle Felting UK group on Facebook. Again, pop over if you want to learn more and share your makes on Facebook, your needle felted items. And in the book, actually, there are some needle felted projects in there as well, namely little creatures like little dogs. There, I'll bring them a bit closer to you. Curled up dogs, fast asleep in a basket, and also cats. and they obviously fit really well with the Doll's House dolls that are in the book as well. Which this little chap here in the carry cradle, handy carry cradle, he is part of the Doll's House dolls as well. And yeah, everybody needs a little baby like this. So what I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to make one like that while we're talking throughout the show. And it's the quickest and easiest project just to explain maybe some of the things that are useful to know when you're making little dolls or people. So I'm going to start with him in a minute. Any new comments? No, at the moment, so everybody's just waiting for me to rub it on. So first of all, I want to explain why I've even started writing this book. And I think I may have to start with the very first doll that I ever saw or ever held in my hands that was hand sewn by somebody who was very close to me, namely my grandmother. And such doll is called Peter Püppi. There. He's been through the wars. In fact, he was made just after the war. My grandmother sewed him for, I think it was for my dad. My dad was the youngest child of 4. And then there was my cousin who wasn't that much younger than my dad, and so then I think she played with him. This is the story that I've been told, and I'm not the youngest cousin, but I'm the second youngest. So I used to stay in my grandparents' house in Germany, and it was like one of these prefab houses that was built like really quickly after the war, and it was probably completely made from asbestos, who knows, but it was right next to a railway line, and they had quite a big piece of land with it, but the house was the most basic that you can imagine. So there was a big kitchen downstairs, and from the kitchen there was a stairway that went upstairs into the eaves of the house, and there were literally just 2 bedrooms, and you turned right to go into the bedroom that was originally for my dad's brother and his 2 sisters. So they slept in this tiny room, and then if you turn left at the top of the stairs, that was my grandparents' bedroom. So it was really tiny under the eaves. And then downstairs, from the kitchen, you could go into a dining room, and from the dining room into a little sewing room, which is where my grandmother would sit and do all the mending and sewing. And then another tiny, I mean, I'm really talking tiny rooms. They're not even big enough to fit a bed in there, was my grandfather's study. And he would keep diary. He would write every day into a diary what he's been doing, which at the time sounded really boring, but when you look at it 30-40 years later, it was quite eye-opening and eye-opener. So now originally the house didn't have a bathroom or toilet, so there was an outdoors loo, and as long as I remember it, there was never a proper toilet, even when I was staying there as a child. So you used to go to the outhouse, and this sounds like I'm ancient, I probably am, but they had this toilet, and it was a proper toilet that you sat on, but there was no flush. There was always a bucket of water which you had to fill up as the last one, having been in the toilet. And my grandfather used to make, that was one of the jobs that we used to do. I hadn't prepared for this story, but you know how you can have a flat piece of paper and you can fold it so that it becomes like a funnel. So it's literally it's a cone, actually. It's a cone, so it has no hole in the bottom. It's a perfect cone, and he used to do this from old newspapers, and he had the knack that the cone would fit exactly into the hole that would go down into, I don't know what it was, like a tank or something like that. So anyway, to cut a long story short, there were lots of these cones. We would sit in the evening and just make these cones, so that if you went to the toilet, first of all, it wasn't cold stuff coming up from below, but also it was quite satisfying that everything went into that cone all nice and neat, and then would like literally plop down into whatever it plopped down to. And then you had the bucket of water to just swish it down a bit more, and then you had to refill the bucket of water. That was your job, so that the next person always had a full bucket of water there. So very basic, but in all of this, I imagine my grandmother sitting in that little sewing room and making Peter. And he's called Peter Püppi, actually. Püppi is just an endearing name for a little doll. So Püppi, the German word Püppi means little doll. And but his name is Peter, and he is completely hand sewn, and he's been through lots of children hands. I think the outer fabric is actually a linen fabric, but it's a double layer. So even though the top layer might wear off, the stuff that's been inside that he's stuffed with, and it's really tightly stuffed, I must say. And I don't think it's wool. I think it's something like maybe kapok, or that's sort of a traditional old-fashioned stuffing type. I've never really investigated what's inside him. And his head had to be sewn on several times. He used to have originally like a bead nose under the fabric, but that wore through. The hat is completely original. It does need a bit of mending. So is the face, and so are his clothes. So he's got this long linen shirt, which I will show you. So it's like he's not wearing any pants, so I do apologize about that. There, he's got that long linen shirt that goes right down to his knees, and even I can't remember whether I replaced the button at some point or not. But when I was a child, this was my doll, and I actually took him without permission. So I think it came as a bit of a surprise a few years ago that when I said, well, I've got Peter Püppi, because they all wondered, where on earth has Peter Püppi gone? And I have got him, and I looked after him, and I've loved him, and I've mended him, and I passed him on to my children. And so up until recently, in fact, very, very, very recently, because I went only a couple of weeks ago looking through the house and saying, where's Peter Püppi? Who's got Peter Püppi? And he was in my son's room, and he is now 18. I'm not saying that he has him cuddled up somewhere, but he was looking after him for me, which I think is a really nice thing to do. So this is the doll. This is the original doll that inspired me to make dolls for my children. Not so much that I was seeking it out, wondering, oh, where can I make a doll? Where can I make a doll? It was just when the opportunity presented itself to me to make a doll, I was there like a shot, because I just thought, oh, I want to make a doll. I want to make a doll. How can I make a doll? And so Peter Püppi is the original one that that came into my life, albeit I had to sort of sneak him out of my grandparents' house. And by the way, that house, I don't think it exists anymore, but whenever a train would go past, you could literally feel it. Everything was rattling and shaking, and the crockery in the cupboards would clink together. And it was definitely a very different kind of generation that had to endure very different things. And at the moment, of course, we are in a time that will make history, and that we will tell our grandchildren about, if they haven't experienced it themselves, and they tell their children and grandchildren that we've all endured almost wartime situations, and with completely unprecedented scenarios where we're very self-reliant, and we're having to make do with what we sometimes what we find at home, because lots of stuff isn't available to buy at the moment. I'm sure it's nothing like as bad as it was after the war, because I've heard some really, really eye-opening stories. But if you want to make a doll, you might even have a lot of the stuff at home. So that's where the book starts out, really, is that you don't have to go out and buy lots of things. A lot of the you can get the best materials that way, but you don't have to start at the top end. If you just want to make a very simple doll, you can. So Donna says, he's absolutely lovely, such a well-loved doll, and holds so many memories. Absolutely. So my first doll that I made for my daughter Romy was actually, I haven't got her here. I did ask her to go and get the doll, but in hindsight, I'm not too upset that she didn't, because it looks absolutely rotten. She used to suck on it and sleep with it and chew on it, and so I think it probably wouldn't be a good seller to this book to show you her doll. But the kind of doll that I did make was not dissimilar to this one. And it was literally a triangle. It's not the best background top to wear for this doll, but it was a triangular doll. This is actually a flannelette or brushed cotton, which a lot of people used to have, and I think this is what my original doll was made of. Is what people used as bed sheets in the winter. So it's a nice warm bed sheet, a little bit more soft than just plain cotton. And you don't need to use the specialist fabric that goes over the face. You could just use a t-shirt. It has to be a kind of a stretchy fabric, so a jersey is nice. But if you only have a t-shirt that preferably is of a remotely skin color, then that's fine too. This doll has got a really tall hat, and then the hair is just sort of sewn on underneath the hat and then sewn fast by putting the hat over the top. It's got no face. It's got a very wrinkly head, but I'm promising you, little children, and my daughter was 2, wouldn't care at all about the imperfections and the bits that a lot of adults freaks out when they say, oh, but there's no face on it. And I've seen it and I've heard it loads of times. With children, they don't actually mind, especially when they're quite little, because they might say, if they're not used to it, why hasn't it got a face? And you'll just say, well, it does, doesn't it? And then they start, their imagination starts rearing up and jumps into action, and every single doll to them has got a face. Now, I've got a daughter and she's 13, and whenever we drive anywhere, not so much now, but when we do, she always says, oh, look at that sad car. Oh, this is a really smiling car. Oh, he looks really, really cross. And she just always sees cars in the back of, faces in the back of cars. And I'm not talking about a face looking out of the window. I'm talking about the car itself. Children have got an amazing imagination, and they're the last ones who want perfection, actually, because to them it's already perfect, however imperfect it is. So this was the first doll that I ever made for my daughter, and the feeling I had when she took it in her little arms and cuddled it, it's really hard to describe it, because it's such a, I don't know, it's just the most precious gift that you can give to a child, because you've spent hours and hours sewing this together and putting, with every stitch, you put a little bit of love into the making of it. And when they take it, it's really brilliant. However, I've also made dolls that have been rejected. So and you think, oh, but it's a really nice doll. And you think, oh, I'll just keep it to myself. I have, in fact, one of these dolls here that was rejected. I don't think he was ever unrejected. It's this little one. For some reason, I don't know why he was rejected, but he just was. Yeah, sorry. But you're very lovely. And you can tell that he's been rejected because he looks immaculate. Nobody's loved him other than me, of course. If you want to see a doll that has been loved, then this one here. And Sophie, you will remember her because she used to sit in the shop that I used to have, and everybody said, oh, I want to make a doll like this. And so this is how then I started thinking, actually, other people should be making dolls. And she's quite a cutie. So she's definitely been loved, as you can tell, and handled and kissed and whatnot. And there is actually another, and her hair has been made and unmade and brushed and turned into pigtails and then bunched up. So this is what a love doll looks like, and they can look even worse. So let's just see. Oh, I know, poor little doll who's been rejected. He's all right, really. So I'm just going to put this one away, and I was going to just focus on making a little one like this. Before I start with this, I should just show you that I've got a box here. I'm just turning this around because if any of you don't know yet, we have got, oh God, that's really awkward to hold. We've got a Facebook group called Everyone a Maker, and it's the place where we share what we've made. However, there's also a new Facebook group called Making Soft Dolls, and if you want to join it, just ask and I'll let you join, and which is where we could also share where dolls are being made. Right, so this is what my doll making box is like at the moment. I've got an eclectic mix of embroidery thread in there. They're usually hair color, eye color, mouth color. I have got some felting wools in here. Again, it's eye, mouth, hair color. because I have, in the book, I am doing needle felting on the dolls' faces, but also sometimes the heads get needle felted before they're covered with the fabric. I have got several skin colored sewing threads here, and then equally reds and other colors to match fabrics. I've got a whole selection of little decorations like these, like frilly flowers, or sometimes I undo sometimes I undo some of the flowers and you get a little strip of ribbon there. There's a yeah, something like that that would be amazing as a fascinator on a doll's house doll. So all these little bits, I love these little bows because they look really nice on a doll's house doll. If I just borrow him and I'll show you, they look really nice if you put them onto him like a little bow tie, and he looks really posh straight away. Or of course they can go into in fact, I'm going to pick up that doll that dropped earlier, excuse me, there. You can put it into the hair of a doll as a little ribbon tied in her hair. So I love all these little bits and pieces that you usually get for embellishment, for card making and so on. So they're never lost. I also love odd ends of wool. So if you've got something like a boucle, is great for making doll's hair, or even just the hair that goes on the big dolls. What else is in there? We actually sell at the makers. We sell these little wooden feet there, which are, oh, it's the wrong way around. Let's put it so that they actually face the right way, and they're really great if you want to have a standing doll like this one, and they actually do stand. Oh, you can't really see there. They can stand on their own. If the book wasn't warped there. So that's really great if you want to give your doll's house dolls legs, and they can actually stand up. Alternatively, you sew them so that they have a flat base, and then they can stand too, of course. And then I've got tiny buttons in there as well. I mean, they're really, really tiny. And of course, this is all packed into one of the boxes where that we sell as part of our toolbox to go. And as Sophie pointed out the other day, we're promoting the toolbox on the go, I think we call it. It's not like you can go anywhere, but I think Sophie mentioned, well, you can take it from your sitting room to your bedroom and then maybe to the kitchen. So it's definitely a toolbox on the go. So I've got this to start with, and I'll collect all my little pieces in there, and these are the tiny little buttons that I've got in there as well. And they work really well on little accessories like this little satchel here. It's just really lovely. It's endless what you could be making and how you could be decorating once, and it's in the detail. The loveliness is in the detail. So let's put these to one side again. Put you up there. You're falling over as well. You're all falling over, but that's okay. Okay, I'm gonna give up on this. No, you can stay there. That's it. So when you make a tiny little baby, like the one on the cover page, let's open the book up first of all. Let's look inside. So if I'm going straight to the baby section here, the photos, as I said, these are the lovely photos that Ollie took, and then all the drawings. This is what Lucy drew, and obviously the writing is my writing. And you get the templates in the book. Now for this little baby, it's quite easy because you can have the real size template on the page. But when you get to the larger dolls, the book hasn't got an insert where the patterns are real size. But in the back of it, you have the bodies of the dolls there. And for example, this one is actually that size here. So you have to go and photocopy this page, and it tells you on there to multiply it. it says it somewhere there. Yes, increase this body template by 250% to have a full-size template. So you will have to have access to a larger printer, maybe A3. And at the moment that might be a difficulty because again you can't probably get out to do this. But that's the idea, that you blow these patterns up basically. So coming back to the baby, I have got the pattern here in the back, and I keep checking if there are any questions that you need to ask. There's nothing. Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with making toys and keeping them for yourself. Very few of mine leave. Well, that is actually true, and I know lots and lots of people who've been making dolls or other toys, and they're purely making them for themselves because it's just very therapeutic, crafting in itself, but there's also something very therapeutic about making dolls. And there are lots of stories that some of them I share here in the book, but there are lots of stories. For example, I've met a lady, she's come and she wanted to make dolls, and she has asked me questions, and she makes dolls with women in prisons who had to leave their children behind, or who've been taken away from them, and they make little pocket dolls that fit in their pockets, so that as to symbolize that their children are with them, and for some reason, but they always wanted something sparkly on them. So I thought that was such a lovely thing to be able to do for these women who must suffer immensely. I can't even imagine like, but that you have something that you can pour your love into, and you just have something physically to hold. Similarly, I've heard stories and I've helped people make dolls who have taken it to their mother in a care home who suffers from dementia, and there's just something so archetypal about dolls that I think it was one of these squishy dolls, one of these that and they're very, very soft and squishy, and they're actually filled. This one is filled with wool neps. If you I've got a sample here of wool neps. I just have to find it. Come on, there it's here. These are wool neps. You might have come across them with needle felting. Sometimes people use them to add texture to a picture, but they're actually a great filling material for making really soft dolls. So the wool neps are in this one, and they're just very tactile and squishy. So and the fabric is beautiful. It's a very soft velour, 80% cotton, which is quite unusual to find something so rich in cotton. And it's super soft, super endurable. What's the word? Not endurable, but it lasts for a long time. And you can use these lovely wool neps to fill the dolls and make them nice and tactile. So it's not just for babies or for young children. These dolls might have a very special meaning for grown-ups at either spectrum of their life. So let's go back to the baby. So what I've done is, because I didn't want to photocopy, I've just sort of imagined what it's like at the moment with you not being able to photocopy. I've actually used a bit of water-soluble paper, only because it's see-through, and I drew around it so I have a template of the fabric that I need, and then I used that template to cut 2 parts of the body out that will become that little baby, and also the same thing with a hat, and I made one shape for the hat. So I'm going to put this to one side because I'm going to start on the head. Now the head is a little bit of a mystery when it comes to making these dolls, and this is the bit that used to actually freak me out, to be perfectly honest, because I would look at a doll like let's have a look, where's a good one? I would look at a doll like this, and you can see there is an indentation in the face, so that the face isn't just plain round like this one. There is actually a little bit of a featured face to it, so it's got that eye line running across it. More so, if you want to give your doll a nose, then who have we got here? Oh, we've got this is my this is the one that I call Peter, and I'm holding him low because he's completely in the nude. The clothes are still with the publisher, and I haven't had a chance to pick it up because they're on lockdown at the moment. So you can see that he has got a nose here. So I will show you, albeit in a really, really small fashion, how you can achieve these eye lines and possibly a nose on some of the larger dolls. I think the baby is pushing a bit, having a tiny little nose when it's only a tiny little face. So bear with me. Oh yeah, I just want to dispel a myth as well. When I started promoting the book online, lots of people thought that these are all knitted, and there's actually only 2 dolls in the book that are knitted, and they're the same style of doll. They just have got a different head, and so you don't need to be able to knit to make the dolls at all. All you need to be able to do is a basic sewing by hand. That's all that is required. It does help if you can crochet for some of the hairstyles, but again, it's not necessary. This one has got some amazing turmeric curls that we, the hand-dyed Teeswater curls that we sell in our shop as well. And I just absolutely love that hair. And in fact, Sophie told me she's got a friend with that color hair. I'm so jealous. So nice. So let's go back to the baby. So let's do the head. That's what we try to do. Oh, there's the wool. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit now, so you can see less of me but more of what I'm actually doing. It's probably not a great background, that white on white, so I'm just gonna leave the book there for now. And this is just a normal wool bat. I am actually using our lanolin rich for this because it's nice and sticky. But if you've got any wool will do. And I'm only use a small quantity, and I'm winding this as much as I can into a ball shape. So if you know how to needle felt, it does actually make a huge difference, because instead of just leaving the ball as it is, you could also just give it a couple of stabs and then secure it so that it doesn't pop open. Because I've found it that making dolls, and I didn't link the two somehow. I actually don't need to do any more than this. It's only a small ball, that shape there. And like I say, if you do have a felting needle, it is much easier just to give it a few stabs and then it holds together. But you're not trying to shape it in any way or form, not when it's these tiny, tiny little heads that you're making. So you've just got a little ball here. And then the next thing you need to do is a little bit of sewing to make the head. Now, we've got lots of skin fabric. Oh, it's here, this pile. So we've just started stocking different color skin jerseys, or stockinette as it's called. It's also called tricot. So again, you wouldn't need to use one of these. You can just use, if you have a t-shirt and maybe you've washed it in the pink wash, why not? You know, in the red wash and it's slightly gone pink, or maybe it's a pale pink t-shirt. It really doesn't matter. Or whether it's a sort of a bit of a, you know, when it's not pure white anymore, just use that. So I'm going to use what color would I like? Well, I'm going to use, well, I don't want any of these really, because I'm just looking, there's one thing I need to explain to you as well. So if you look very closely at these fabrics, this you can't see that very well with this one. This one here, it looks a little bit like I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but it has got a knit, like a knit stitch. Can you see? And it stretches this way because the way that it's been knitted is in that direction. So it stretches that way. But if I turn it round, it looks as if it's got a purl stitch on the back. So it's basically a stocking stitch. And is that right? Yes, it's a stocking stitch. And so it looks right on one side, but wrong on the other side. But there are some of these little fabric pieces, or the jerseys, I should say, that are the same from one side to the other. That's also one that is wrong on one side and right on the other side. Now, we call these a heavier fabric, and they are heavier. So there is less stretch in them than there is in one that has got, like this, for example. This one here is right on both sides. It looks exactly the same, and there's a lot more stretch in there. And none of the ones I've got here, with the exception of that dark brown, is the right one. So I'm going to use that really dark brown, because for the little baby you don't actually need a heavy piece of fabric. This one will be absolutely fine. So because I'm going to have that head inside here, I'm sort of measuring out, or you follow the instructions, which I don't even do with my own, measuring out how big a piece I would need, and it needs to be a nice tight fit. And remember, there's also a bit of stretch in it. So I'm just going to cut this in half now because I only need half. There. And now I'm going to sew this together. So I can take this book away now because you can see the dark on dark. And I've got my very handy pin cushion here. This is needle felted, of course. We do sell a kit that does something similar, but has got more details on the top, our woodland pin cushion. I'm just going to take a needle and then find a matching sewing thread. Let's go for this one. I'm sure I've got a dark one somewhere, but I can't find it. So this is too, well, I'm just going to go for this one. So if because I haven't got the right thread, I'm actually going for black here. But if you're not going to see the color at all. So I'm going to thread the needle, and you're going to watch me do some boring sewing now, because I'm literally doing a back stitch. Because it doesn't matter whether it's the right way or the wrong way. It doesn't really matter which side I'm sewing up. I'm also going to shorten that a little bit. If you follow the instructions in the book, you will get the exact right measurements. But I can't even follow my own instructions. Terrible. So all I'm doing now is making a really neat little back stitch here. And a back stitch is basically where you go back one stitch and then forward two. And then you go back one and forward two. The stitches are really well explained in the book as well. I just, where's the book gone? There. I'll just show you if I can, where the stitches are explained. There's a whole section about materials, and there it explains the difference in the fabric, what's the heavy and what is the light fabric. There are the threads, and basically this is the inside of my little sewing box that I've just shown you. We've covered some of the hair and the wool neps. We talked about those down there in the corner. And here are your stitches. So they're quite easily illustrated here, so you can see it, but you can also read what you're actually doing. So you can see your stitches there. And then you start with the dolls. It actually starts off with calling it the body shop, and you get a whole view of how to make the different heads. There are different style heads, so all the heads are explained first, and the different ways of making the heads, and then you get into the dolls, and you start with the simplest, which is the Romy doll, which I told you about, named after my daughter because it was the first doll I made. And then there's the Max and Mimi doll. Max is one of my children, and Mimi is actually the name that my son used to call Romy when she was a little, and he couldn't say her name properly. And it's just really beautifully done. And there's little Elijah in the picture there, just part of him. Lovely chubby baby feet and hands. And then Hannes and Hannah doll are the two dolls that you can make with me in a sew along. So if you pop onto our website, we have got a product there that is called Hannes and Hannah doll sew along, and you get all the materials to make one of these, and which you can choose whether they have got just a pouch or whether they have the two legs. So don't worry, don't think you have to buy the blue to get the legged one and red to get the pouch one. You can have either color to make either the pouch or the legs, and it's basically all explained. Now this doll here, and I just absolutely love this photo. There's Indy there, and this one is probably the most complicated doll. That has the full stockinette body, and then it's also got a needle felted face, and then there's this is the next one, is a Waldorf baby doll. So it is actually, it is a baby shape. It's not terribly big, but it has got sort of more the little O-shaped legs. And then there's a whole section about accessories for making the doll's clothes, hats, dresses, little booties. and then you have the whole doll's house, dolls and accessories section here. And making, again, it starts with making the head, which is the same for all of the dolls, and then you can make different styles. So you get the one that has got a short or long top and trousers. So that's your, and I was very, very conscious, bearing in mind that not every family is made out of mum, dad, and 1 or 2 children, or even more. You know, there are lots of families where there's 2 dads and 2 mums, or just 1 dad and however your family is made up. There should be a way of making, copying the people to make the family that you want to make. So so then we've got dresses and skirts, and then at the very end the baby, and then of course the 2 pets that are featured here, which are the dog and the cat. And then at the very back you've got the different patterns that you need to make bigger on a photocopy machine. So just going to put this to one side, and I'm going to do a bit of boring sewing whilst I'm reading. I'm going to do this as quickly as I can, so that I can at least show you how to do the head. And I'm looking at the comments here while I'm doing this, trying not to stab the needle into myself. Somebody's at work. Somebody's very industrious here at the makers, sending all kinds of links. We're still not entirely sure whether these comments are actually staying on the live stream. I think they get taken down after a while, but if you watch it sort of next week, you should still see them. But if you don't see them, then don't be confused what on earth I'm looking at and what I'm reading. They I think they will get taken down eventually by YouTube. Sorry, I've just realized I'm also not in the camera anymore, so you're just looking at some white background. Do apologize. Right, so I'm just I've done that quite quickly, just a back stitch here, and I'm not even gonna cut the yarn at the moment, sorry, the thread, but I will be turning this head inside out now. So I'm turning this the right way round, even though it doesn't matter which way round it is, but at least I don't have the seam showing. And I've still got the thread on there, and I'm going to leave it there because that will be handy in a minute. So let's come back to the head. So at the moment the head is just a round blob, and what I need to do is I need to tie an eye line into it with some extra strong thread, which I have got ready, and it's here, there. Phew. So tying an eye line can be quite tricky, and the reason for that is that if you have a small project like this, it's even worse. But if you've got a larger project, there is a particular knack to it. But once you've got the knack, it's actually really, really, really easy. And I'm just looking for a slightly better background. Just going to use orange so that you can see this better. So what I'm doing now is I'm using my extra strong thread, and I'm going round the head twice. I just need to shape this a little bit better because it's come a little bit loose, so just bear with me. If you don't have a felting needle, the way to shape it, let's do it that way, is by putting another layer of wool over it and holding it, holding the wool that's underneath tight. You don't need to needle felt this. I just want to make the point because I so easily now grab my needle because I'm so used to it. So this is a lot tighter now, and now I'm going to wrap my extra strong thread around it twice. So when it meets again, it's meant to be in the middle of that shape. If it's not in the middle, then undo it and try and do it again. And this is I'll be perfectly honest, this is the bit, if you're not used to it, that can be quite tricky. So when you've wrapped it around twice, now if you haven't got an extra helping hand, it looks like this, so it comes together here. Then what you can do is you can put a knot onto it, but instead of slipping just through the loop once, slip through it twice. It's like a magic way of making a tight knot without having to have an extra finger. So I'm tight. I hold this really tight, but it's not a knot on there yet, and I can let go of it. It doesn't come loose because of that extra loop that I've put through. And then you can finally put the knot on it. And then with this particular style, when it's a small doll like this, you just cut the thread off. And now you're going to fit the tube that you've sewn together over the head. And it needs to be a snug fit, so we do want it to be squished in there. When you make a larger doll, you don't have all this sort of kerfuffle going on with, you know, it doesn't feel so fiddly. So you push this in, and you will be able to see the eye line that's on the doll. You might not be able to see that from where you are, but I'm going to now, I can feel it, it's just here. So when the head is tight, the eye line is hard to see in that fabric as well, but the eye line is tight here, and that is where the eyes are going to be sewn on if you're going to put eyes on. But before that, all I'm doing now is, because it's a tiny doll, I'm going to sew the top shut, but before that I'm going to make sure that the base is closed first, and I'm doing it that way around. So I'm using that thread that I've had, and I'm actually just going to tighten it really tight around the base and give it a few stitches. So I've tightened the base now. It doesn't matter if you've got sort of a bit of a bit sticking out, that's absolutely fine. Just get rid of sew the thread in so that it doesn't come undone again. And because I don't want to cut my thread, I'm just going inside the doll to the top, doll's head, even to the top of the head. Now what I need to do is I need to stuff this firmly in so that my head is nice and tight in there, and then I'm going to sew the top over the back. And there you will need to use an invisible stitch, and an invisible stitch is when you go with your needle into the fabric like that, and then you go into the fabric again, and then when you pull it closed, it sort of folds the fabric together, but you can't actually see the thread anymore. So I'm pulling the fabric away from the front of the head as much as I can, because I don't want anything to show where the face is, so that I can just put the eyes on there, but we don't have any unsightful seams or anything like that in the face. So I'm just going around the back quite quickly here. Oh, we've got Pat here as well. Pat, who's you have now managed. You coming up as Pat, not as the other name anymore. So that's been a success. It's really nice for you to be here. Oh, thank you, Colette. She says the book looks amazing. And remember, you are in with a chance to win a book. At the very end of the stream, I will ask a question that about something to do with a book, and the first one to answer the question will be we contact you, and or we ask you to contact us, and we will post a signed copy of the book out to you. So I'm trying to make as neat a job here as I can. However, if you're not a neat sewer, don't worry about it, because all of this is going to be completely hidden away. As long as it stays closed, it doesn't have to be extremely neat. You'll be pleased to know, because nobody's going to see it. As long as you've got the front of the face nice and smooth, then whatever happens on the bits that are covered up, nobody's going to ever know. It's your secret. So that's absolutely not a problem. So I'm just going to sew this shut properly, nearly there. And one thing that I will say, if you're making dolls, don't cut any corners in terms of thinking, oh, that's enough now. Keep sewing. It pays off. Go over it several times again, because these dolls, if they are made for children, they will be dragged around. They will be torn. They might who knows what they have to endure. My son, when he started, I've got 3 girls, and they often played with their dolls, really nice and lovely. And then my son would come in, and suddenly there was a disaster happening, and the dogs had to be upsailed out of the window into the digger that was had doubled up into an ambulance, and they were transported off site, and so there was always some action going on, and the dolls sometimes didn't get the loveliest treatment that you imagine a doll should get. So all, of course, to try and rescue them from the burning house. So anyway, I've got the back of my head sewn in now. Cut the thread. It's not the prettiest thing, but the main thing is that the front is absolutely neat. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some wool to make eyes. In fact, it's not wool. I'm going to use a bit of thread. Now, when you do the big dolls, you use embroidery thread if you're choosing to embroider the faces, but you can also needle felt them, or you don't have to put faces on at all. If you have a larger doll, then you might also want to use a large doll's needle. We do sell the larger doll's needles. I'm not entirely sure if I brought downstairs a pack of the doll's needles, but they are really substantial. I have got one here in my sewing pincushion, so this one is quite a long needle here, but I think it's not even the longest. So that you need those, and because you have to go all the way from the back of the face into the front, back of the head into the front of the face to sew on the features for the eyes. Now, I keep the features really simple, and that is kind of what the sort of Waldorf style is, if there is a face at all. But you can go for it. If you want to embroider eyes onto there, there's no right or wrong. It's your doll. And I'm giving him slightly sort of, I don't know what that color is called, like a hazelnut color. It's really lovely color. Eyes. And so I'm going in and out a couple of times in there, and then I'm going along where I imagine the nose to be, top of the nose, to the other side, and do the same again, just a couple of times, back and forth with the needle. There. And then we go out of the doll the way that we came in, the doll's head, going out at the back. So a lot of stuff is happening here at the back, so that you don't have to worry where you're going to put the thread and so on. And then you do the same for the mouth. So, but obviously only once, because you don't want 2 mouths. You only want 1. So the same again. I just thread my needle. This one is a bit bent. This needle. And again, I start at the back, so the thread in so it's secure, and nobody's gonna see the back of the head, so don't worry if it looks a little bit weird. And then you sew your little mouth in a if you make a triangle, if you imagine the eyes and the mouth make a perfect triangle, then that is a good way to aim for. So don't know if you can see, he's got a little face now. So I've just sewn. There's still the thread. I've got to take it out to the back, but he has got a little face, and he's got his eyes out closed. He's asleep. And I sew the thread in again at the back. There. And then I cut that as well. So now you've got your little head. It's still got that bit here. It's fine. That can stay there. The back of it doesn't look too good, but it doesn't matter really. It's going to be completely hidden by the hat that you sew, and then you basically sew the body together. There. With a blanket stitch. It looks quite nice if you go around the edges with a blanket stitch, and then you can fit the head inside. And there is a little trick that you do with the arms as well, because we're using pipe cleaner to make the little hands. Again, it's not something that you have to do. You could also just sew little hands at the end, at the edge here. I'm just going to have a little read at what you all have been commenting and what you've all been saying. So I'm just going to go to the big camera again. Yeah, you can see the shape of the face now. Thank you, Diane. It does eventually come through. A surgeon's knot. Oh, is that what it is? A surgeon's knot. Well, we have a surgeon here. Oh, yes, very similar. I was just going to say, Chandra, you should know if it's a surgeon's knot or not. It is also called a mattress stitch. Oh, okay. Yes. If your sewing is rubbish, don't worry too much about it. As long as it doesn't fall apart, then you don't have to be too neat a sewer. The good thing also is if you do the big dolls and you are handy with a sewing machine, which I'm not, then you can use a sewing machine as well. But for the little stuff, you do need to use your fingers. Yes, you logged in at once, and I am also logged in. Oh, I see. Okay, so I don't know. There's something going on between Emma maybe and somebody else. So the needles will not be. Thank you for asking that question, Yana. The needles will not be part of that kit. So you saying that because the dolls of these dolls, their heads aren't that big. You can probably get away with a longish sewing needle like the one that I'm using here. You should be able to get, yeah, you should be able to get through the head with a normal sewing needle. It's only when you're going for really big heads like this one here, if you're making a doll like that, and there's just it's really, we can't even see the head for all the hair, but you have got a lot of way to go through there. And I'm just going to show you that this is probably the most sort of complicated doll. She has actually got a needle felted face. So I did needle felt her face, which you don't need to do. You can sew it, or you don't have to needle felt it. You can just sew features onto it, as was done with where's Peter now? Oh, there he is. So Peter has got he has also got a needle felt. He's also needle felted, but his head is needle felted. So that great big nose he's got in his face is actually needle felted. The shape of the head is really quite solid, and it's needle felted. And then the eyes and the mouth have been embroidered on. And if I can just show you her, sorry, excuse her. This is hard to show, but this bit here that sort of looks a bit like memory foam is actually sand. So if you want to when you make these dolls, they're not actually very they're not very heavy, because wool doesn't weigh very much, the fabric doesn't weigh very much. So if you want to give it a more authentic weight, you can add a little sand pouch into the back, which is explained in the book. Sorry, I'm squeezing her bum here, but and it gives it a really satisfying weight. Also, the legs, the bodies are an all-in-one pattern, which is one of the things that I loved about these dolls, because I'm not a great sewer. The idea that I had to sew lots of parts together and then sew them together. I'll just show you on him. All of this, all of the body, with the exception of the head, that's separate, is basically one big part with a small part at the front. So you do have to sew them together on the sides, but you don't have to make the legs and the arms separately. They're all part of this pattern. And if you want to, you can sew little stitches into the crease here where the legs are, so that they bend more naturally. Because of the way that they're sewn, they have a natural shoulder seam here, which makes the legs bend forward more naturally than bending back, which is exactly the right way around. And then with this doll here, there is a way of giving her feet, and they're sewn on separately. I came across this entirely by accident, but and I will tell you the story because it's quite funny. So I made a doll for my middle daughter called Rosemary, and she had ginormous long arms, and she looked completely out of proportion. This is just a made-up pattern, so I cut her hands off, okay, as you do. And then I had these two little pouches, and I thought, oh, they would look really good to put on her legs, so that she had a foot and rather than just a round shape there. So I sewed the end of her arms. This is not the doll I did this with, but that's got me thinking, well, actually that is a way of making a foot that points forward, so it's much easier when you make a little booty. These little booties, by the way, they're in the book as well. So when you make a little booty, they do fit dolls that haven't got that extra foot as well. It looks more natural when that they've actually got a toe part in the foot. And there. And by the way, the dress that she's wearing is an old jumper, so I didn't knit this at all. It's all cut and then sewn together. Again, it explains everything in the book. So she can have these little booties on, and the booties, they were a design that I made up for when my children were little, and they had these I could never get them to keep their slippers on. So she can have these little booties on her feet, and there is actually a toe part in the front of there. Whereas if you put this onto, say, Peter, because his feet are just straight down, they will stay on because you can tie them tight, but that's a much easier way of making them stay on her feet, and it looks a little bit more real. She's got amazing hair. We do actually sell doll's hair now. I'm just going to show you a selection with the makers. We buy this in as doll's hair, so it's not something that we suddenly decide, oh, we sell this as doll's hair. And it comes in two different types. This is a mohair, which it's very hairy, obviously, because it's hair. And we have this in lots of different colors. I didn't bring all of them downstairs because there's also more of a golden yellow, and there's a lovely ginger color as well. And then we have got, so all these are all the same, and then we have got a boucle, which is also a mohair, but it's got those extra loops, and they're great for hair. And this is what this doll here, Tomke doll, has got. She's got a mohair mane, and this comes in the same colors as the mohair as well. And of course, if you want to make hair, like for example for this little doll here, then these are just the natural Teeswater curls that have been dyed into this lovely turmeric color, which we do sell as well. But you can think outside the box, and you could go for maybe red. Why not? I've even got one there, lovely red color. Or you, with one of the Doll's House dolls, I used a brightly colored curl to give her the look. I love doing the Doll's House dolls. They are one of my favorites because there's, like I say, you can do so many little details on them. And for example, this little one here, she's got a little carrier on the back. Again, the instructions are in the book, and you can put the little baby doll into it, either facing out or facing in, whichever way you fancy. And you can have his hands in or out, or one in and one out there, and he can get carried around on the back of I don't know, his mum or bigger sister or whatever that is. And then I've got a little handsome satchel for this gentleman here, so he can, that little satchel is a part of the book and the instructions as well, so he can either go to work or do his paper round or whatever he's doing. And then another thing, which again, I love thinking outside the box and making do with what you've got at home. So when I was making this, I didn't have any different color felt because I was making it at home, and it was plain white, and I wanted it to be colorful, and so I got my Sharpies out and I just painted, well, I drew on the apron just randomly pieces of fruit, and before I realized it was nice and colorful, and it was perfect. So again, these some of these clothes you can take off on the Doll's House clothes, but on the Doll's House dolls, but most of them are part of the dolls, so you can't dress and undress them. I'm just saying that because I know children love doing that. But if you give them little accessories like an apron or a bag, or he's got a little waistcoat on which you can take off, then I'll just take that off there. Then you at least they can be dressed or undressed partially, and children absolutely love this. So that's just another thing. You do get the pattern in the book for making this little baby carrier here, so our little baby can fit back inside and be nice and safe in his little cradle. I used to make lots and lots of these little babies, and I would and for display I hung them up on a tree, like a branch with like a decorative tree, and I used to call them treetop babies because it reminded me of the nursery rhyme Rockabye Baby. And so for me they always stay the treetop babies, but they're actually now babies for the Doll's House dolls. What else can I tell you? Is there anything that anybody wants to know? Thread a needle. Can't you thread a needle, Christine? It's really nice that you're part of this. Thank you very much for watching. What's it like? You're still back out in the... Where are you? Is it... oh, I can't remember now. Is it Saudi Arabia or is it... where are you? I've completely had a bit of a... Yes. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, you need rainbow hair. In fact, don't you normally have rainbow hair? Nothing wrong with fun colors for hair at the moment. Mine's blue. Yes. Yeah, no, exactly. I think you should definitely have all these colorful hairs on your dolls. So I'm loving that already. Some of you might not even know, but at the Makers we do sell knitting yarn as well, and the yarn that you need to knit the dolls with is a chunky. I love this, and we stock the West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, which is 100% natural fiber. I love this this one here that's called Retreat, and it knits up really lovely into that pattern. I mean, never mind. I think I was making some wrist room at some point. Didn't get very far, but you can see where I'm heading with this. But it knits up really lovely, and I imagine one of the knitted dolls in that would look really nice. So we have got that in blue and in pink. You can buy that from us, and we also have got some of the Retreat comes in more natural colors. This yellow doesn't look quite so. It looks, I don't know what it looks like on your screen. On my screen it looks more like a golden yellow, so it could double up as hair, and so could this if you want to make that style of hair. We have got some double knitting yarn as well, which is what I did with where's he gone now? Where's my turmeric color? There. This one here, it's actually a double knitting yarn but doubled up. So a doubled up double knitting yarn makes a chunky, which is what the Retreat is. But if you prefer using two different colors, like I love these two colors together, they're just really lovely, then you can do that. You can also have the option to make a two-colored body. It's all knitted in one, and it's really simple knitting. It's just a garter stitch. You don't need to be sophisticated in knitting. You do need to know how to cast on. That would be helpful, obviously. You need to know how to cast off mid-row and cast on again, and how you don't need to reduce. You don't need to know how to reduce on making these. So so that is quite easy to do. There are patterns in there for making different types of hats as well. So you can make your dolls hats. And like I say, there are some clothes that I just don't have here because they're still with the publisher. So and I couldn't get it, unfortunately, because the office is closed at the moment. Everybody's working from home. Yes, oh, Kelly, you're in West Yorkshire. Yeah, you must know them really well. I really love the West Yorkshire yarn. Oh, you're in Kuwait. I wanted to say, Christine, in Kuwait. What is it? Are you still in lockdown there? I have no idea what's happening in Kuwait. I hope you're safe anyway. So I think I've been going on for just over an hour, and it's time to bring this to an end. But before I bring this to an end, there's the big question that wins you a book. So I hope you're ready at the keyboard. I'll just wait in case you're not ready. I'm just going to have a drink of my tea as well. before it gets completely cold. Okay, are you ready for the question? So if you are ready to write the answer, it's only one word, but can you name the very first doll that inspired me to write this book? And that's whoever writes this first is going to be the winner of the a signed copy of the book. And I'll wait because this will come through in a minute. Lockdown and curfew for Christine. Oh, and curfew. What all day or just in the evening, or when's that? Oh, thank you for your lovely comments and also just yeah, just keeping me going. Basically, it's a really weird thing to do a book launch online. But here you go. When all of this is over, then we'll do something different as well. Oh, and here we go. Okay, so you all got the answer right, but the first one to write it is actually Chris Atkinson. So, Chris, you've won yourself a book. What you need to do is you need to drop us an email now on, and it's info, so forget the www, at themakers.co.uk. Tell us that you won the book, and then we will get in touch with you and get the address. We don't need to do this here. That would be a bit awkward. So it's so nice that you got it all right. Thank you so much. So funny, the answers. Yeah. Yes, everybody's just like, Peter. That's hilarious. So thank you very much for watching. I really do hope that you join me again when we do the sew along for Hannes and Hannah. You don't you can buy the materials pack for this. You don't have to. The tutorial is actually for free, and they're already advertised on YouTube, but they haven't got pictures, I don't think, with them yet. I can't remember, or do they, Emma? But if you want to get the right materials to make one or the other doll, then you can buy it from us online. Just write in Hannes, and Hannes is spelled Hannes, and then it just comes up as the material pack, and then you've got the same things that I have to start out with, and then yeah, and there will be other sew alongs. We're already planning them. There will be little kits coming up as well. So this is not by any means the end. This is just the beginning. And it's going to be so much fun when we're all able to see each other in person again. So let's keep positive. Let's keep fingers crossed that soon we will all be set free again. And I know that this might go on for a little bit longer, but it's not going to be forever. And when you look back, we all think, gosh, that felt like a year, but actually it was just a few weeks, and we all get through. So just stay positive. Thank you so much for joining me, and well done, Chris, for winning one of these. And I see you all very, very soon, if nothing else, at one of other live streams coming up next week. Have a great weekend, everybody, and lots of love from myself, but everybody at the Makers too. See you soon. Bye.